Just like Alicia and Karachi said, we're going to be talking about different city-states in Greece. Now, the main ones we're going to focus on in our studies is going to be Athens and Sparta, but this is going to apply to lots of Greek city-states. So this is the map that we just labeled this last week, although I don't think I had you label Rhodes. Poor Rhodes. Now, we had our do now question, what is a city-state? And here we see the textbook definition, a city with its own traditions, governments, and laws. Karachi made sure to point out that it has its own fully functioning government. So we have the situation where it is a city, but it's its also own separate and independent country. The word state, I know we think of it a little differently as part of a country, but you could use the word state to describe a country as well. So this is something we've been talking about from the very beginning of the year when we talked about Mesopotamian city-states. It's the idea that if Frederick, Maryland was not only the city of Frederick, but it was also its own country. And Baltimore was not only the city of Baltimore, but its own country. Luckily, we're unified together. Now, the two most powerful and dominant city-states, I've mentioned them many times, and some of you are already familiar with these two, are Athens and Sparta. And we're going to see that Athens and Sparta's cultures are both going to be Greek, but are going to have very, very different results in the end. And really, all of the city-states had their own ways of being unique. We just don't, unfortunately, have time to talk about all of them. It would be so cool if we could be like, all right, this week we're talking about Corinth, and this week Ephesus. But alas, we shan't. Now, who can remember for me? Because it's so hard for me to remember. I'm so old. Why is this ancient Greece? Why do we call it ancient Greece? And why don't we go and have our own Athens unit, our own Sparta unit? What's going to be shared amongst these people? Why we can just talk about the Greeks as a whole? What's going to be shared? Who can please help us out with this, please? All right, Karachi, what's something that they share?
Is it the religion?
They will share religion. You're absolutely correct. So they're going to share the same religion. What else are they going to share? And it does not have to be Karachi. I'd love to get some other people too. So what else do we think is similar between all of the people? Yes, Danielle, my dear.
Some similar traditions.
All right, similar traditions. Very good. I think we're missing a really big and obvious one. We talked about it's why we call the Mycenaeans Greeks and why we didn't call the Minoans Greeks, because they didn't
have the same language.
Thank you, Austin. So first thing is common language. But then, as Karachi and Danielle said, shared common customs and beliefs. Their religion is the same. The only thing that was really preventing them from being one country was that they were physically separated from each other. Remember, our song starts off, mountains and water divide. The Greek city-states are physically separated. It would be really, really hard for Empress Haley to conquer all of the Greeks and then make sure they're all following her orders. Now, we will have someone who does this eventually, but it's not easy. So like we said, we're going to have the city-states being city-states. They're separate. Great job, folks. Now, each city-state has its own kind of government. And we're going to talk about a couple different governments these next 2 days. Well, I guess it'll be 3 days because I won't see you tomorrow, and then we'll talk about it again. So the 4 governments we're going to be looking at first, monarchy. Second, oligarchy. Third, tyranny. And fourth, democracy. Because we're going to see some city-states are going to go through all of these different areas where they have a king. Then they have a group of people ruling. Then, Carson says, well, I don't want to listen to you guys. He gets the army and he takes power by force. He says, I'm now the boss because I've got the swords. And eventually people say, hey, we should vote for our leaders. We should go and, have the people decide. And that's what's eventually going to happen. So the government we're going to be looking at today is called monarchy. Now, what I love about this is we're actually going to look at some Greek because we very rarely get to go study Greek. And I do feel like learning languages is a humongous thing to help you to understand how other words are put together. So we have monos. Where have we seen mono or monos, meaning one? What other words have we used this year that we have mono in?
Monotheism?
I wish you wouldn't call out. So let's go with Madeline Partlow, who did not call out.
Monotheism.
Monotheism. Wow. Sorry, Austin, but seriously, don't just call out Brisky. All right, so monotheism was one. Some of you, I guess you probably don't ever like hook up stereos or anything like that, but like listening into it in mono would be going and having it in one channel instead of stereo. Yeah, so mono, one. And then we have the word archon, which means leader. Now, so what happens for a monarchy? Now, not every monarchy is the same, but typically what it means is you have the power of rule by one person. Now, you might give this person the title king. You might give this title to a person queen. It might be an emperor because, an empire is basically or typically a monarchy. It could be lots of things. In other cultures, monarchies have different names. For example, in the Ottoman Empire, which we'll talk about next year, instead of using the word king, they'll use sultan. In Russia, they use the word czar after Caesar. So there's lots of different, titles it could be, but ruling power is one hand. Now, one interesting fact, the Greek city-states did not have any queens ruling alone. So we don't have any situations like this. Kings would be married. They would have, queens, but we don't have any instances of a queen just ruling without a king in our Greek city-states. Unlike when we talked about Kush, how they had the Kondikes and how they were the powerful ones, the girls. Now, typically, power is passed on in a monarchy from father to son. All right, so it's, rule by heredity, meaning your family ruled, your dad probably ruled. So we have, Gus's dad is king, then Gus becomes king, then Gus the second will become king, then Gus the third, Gus the fourth, Gus the fifth. That's how it typically works. If there's no son, it might go to a nephew. Some countries have to go to a daughter. For example, England, we have got Queen Elizabeth because power went to her instead of, a boy. And that is going to be our notes for the day. Short and sweet. So